Week 3, Coleman Certified SBA 7A Loan Servicing Training, Lance Sexton. Let's go to the poll questions. If you got something that you want to give us during this little presentation, give it to us, but let's go to the poll questions. On a servicing request involving collateral, you should include which of the following documents? An appraisal of the referent collateral, a lien search, the transcript, or all of the above.
This is not me gleaning information from them for a specific purpose. This is more just finding out what they picked up during the week about servicing requests. Hey, this is a smart group. All of the above is correct.
Very good, Lance. Have you recently submitted a servicing request to one of SBA service centers and not gotten a response? I know where you're going on this one.
Well, I just wanted to share with all of our participants, SBA has had huge problems with their email.
What's going on with that?
Your emails, now, first of all, I'm going to encourage you, if you send a servicing request in, you can send it 7A loan mod, that 7A loan mod at sba.gov email address, but right now I've sent a couple of requests, Bob, and they received it, but when they sent the approval back to me, I never got it. So the problem is in emails coming from SBA back to the participant bank, they're getting hung up somewhere in the cloud, I guess. So if you're having problems when you send a servicing request, if you do not get a response within a week, pick up the phone and call the servicing center and check on the status of your servicing request. I had a loan modification request that I sent in on a Friday. 10 days later, I had not received a response, and I called the processing center and talked to one of the employees who said the response was sent out 2 days after I sent in the request, and I never received it. They ended up having to fax the approval to me. So I guess the main takeaway from that is if you've sent a servicing request in and you haven't gotten a response, pick up the phone and call.
Is your institution comfortable with all the servicing actions that are unilateral and require to make the changes in E-Tran?
Well, the most recent unilateral authority matrix that was released increased the number of actions that you as a participant bank have to make the changes in E-Tran yourself. Now, Bob, you and I both know that these changes will be made in SBA 1 at some point. So again, it's critically important for SBA underwriters, originators, servicers, liquidators to start getting comfortable with SBA 1. And we're going to continue to see more and more servicing actions where you, the participant bank, have to make the change in the system.
On average, how many servicing actions per month does your institution have to send to SBA for approval?
I'm just curious here, Bob. I had a long conversation with one of the senior servicing officers at the Little Rock Commercial Loan Servicing Center, and he actually said the number of servicing actions by virtue of more and more becoming unilateral had a multi-year decline. He said the number of servicing actions coming into the center was on an increase.
Really? But still less than 5.
Less than 500%. Yeah, I think that's probably at one time, Bob, when I was deputy director at the Little Rock Center, we handled up to 2,500 servicing actions per month. And now my last indication, I think they said, is 400 to 500.
Wow. Well, good. That's I like that. I think lenders are smart. They know what to do.
Absolutely.
How long do you think it should take SBA to respond with a decision on your servicing request? How about Lance? Where's the 2 hour? Amazon.
It's a trick question, Bob. Now, one thing that I was proudest of when I worked at the servicing center, I started implementing numerical and time standards in the servicing department, and my standard was 90% complete in less than 3 days.
There you go.
I will tell you, Bob, that's no longer the standard.
What is the standard?
I think 7 to 10 days is the standard turnaround time now.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, give us a recap of week 3.
Week 3, we just talked about how to craft and put together a servicing request for submission to SBA for approval. We also talked about how to document unilateral servicing decisions. It's really important for you as a SBA servicing officer to understand any time that there's a servicing request that's sent in for approval, you need a copy of the servicing request, any supporting documents, and the approval in your SBA loan file, as well as any unilateral servicing action that you take needs an appropriate servicing memorandum and a copy of the unilateral authority matrix that you made that decision under put in the SBA loan file.
Good. All right, this was Liz's question from last week. I'm not going to read it all. Go ahead, Lance. What do we got?
I think Liz asked a great question, and I think there's some real takeaways. I think some real takeaways from this question, and the discussion centers around an SBA 504 loan, and there's some environmental issues related to it and the loan to workout. And Liz was talking about modifying the interest rate and terms of the loan in order to give the borrower an opportunity to pay the loan back. And the concern was about the interest rate that was used in the modification, because Liz, as any good SBA servicer would do, had looked at financial statements and made a determination of what kind of payment that they could take, possibly debt cover, and the interest rate proposed was one that made her feel somewhat uncomfortable. And I hope, Liz, I know you're on the call, I hope that's somewhat accurate. In the process of answering this question, I reached out to a few 504 people, and Liz did this as well. Liz is a great example of how you should handle a servicing action. You want to reach out to either Fresno or Little Rock and just ask some questions. So I reached out to one of the 504 servicing officers just to find out if because there's nothing in the SOP. The SOP talks about doing the modification, and there's no minimum interest rate language in the SOP. There's only a maximum. So you technically could modify and set the interest rate at whatever point. But I think Liz's concern is very valid. In this case, SBA, and again, I hope I'm correct here, had purchased the debenture. Oh, it had. And in this case, SBA basically is the lender in this case. And so modifying the note, lowering the interest rate, SBA certainly has some skin in the game. So I talked to a 504 servicing officer about this particular problem, and they were real gray in their answer, Bob. They really didn't say that they would. They agreed with me that the SOP language was pretty clear, that she could do this unilaterally, and that there's no SOP language that would prohibit her from setting a low enough interest rate to allow the borrower to repay it, even if that rate were zero. Now, I think the concern becomes, how does SBA react going down the road, because they wouldn't really identify what is acceptable in their view. I think it falls back again to prudent lending standards, where you look at, if you had a liquidation on a non-SBA loan of similar size and you were trying to modify it and give the borrower an opportunity to repay it, does the interest rate that you're using make sense? Is it something you could get approved if you had to take it to your board and just explain, hey, this is our best opportunity of recovery? And there is SOP language that talks about modifications that give the best opportunity for recovery. The long and short of it is I think what she was looking at doing was acceptable. It's just, Bob, you couldn't get anybody at SBA to say yes, you can do that.
Well, go ahead.
Additionally, there's no SOP language that says yes, you can do that. So again, modify the note, pick an interest rate that will let them repay it, document your file with a good, strong memorandum explaining it.
Well, it's a classic prudent lending case study. My reasoning is that faster principal recovery is the goal based on the circumstances rather than earning interest. Bingo. That's it. And I think that's prudent. And you have a banker who's saying, I'd rather get repaid rather than liquidate. And if the lower we can lower it and we can make it work, I don't think she'll be. I understand the concerns, but especially as long as they're repaying, I don't think she'll be criticized.
Bob, I've liquidated in excess of 1,000 SBA loans in the last 10 years, and I'm here to tell you, SBA lenders, if you can figure out a way to get it repaid, you're significantly better off than going through liquidation. Liquidation almost never results in the same recovery that you can. And I'm dealing with this at my bank, Bob. I've got a loan that I'm looking at, a customer that's not in trouble, but looking at modifying the SBA loan in a way that will ensure they repay it. Because when I look at the liquidation prospects, you know, I take out my scratch pad. I'm kind of old school, and I'm scratching numbers and thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to come out if we push it into liquidation, thinking, I'd be a lot better off getting paid.
Yeah, and I think the risk that Liz has is we cut the deal with the borrower and then they don't perform. So yes. I would have this carrot. This is the carrot. We're going to lower it. But here's the stick. You get more than 90 days or 60 days or 30 days, bam, that's it. We're foreclosing, end of story. And I would put that in the file as well. That way, you know, we don't have a payment here. We miss a month, and it's an ongoing problem. That would be my trade-off.
Well, and Bob, much like if you look out and we'll talk about workouts later in the servicing certification series, but if you're looking at modifying something, lowering the interest rate in a workout scenario, you're going to want to ask for some things from the borrower. You're going to want to get some expectation like, you know, updated financials and agreement to provide them on a quarterly or semi-annual basis, probably a release of any potential lender liability to the financial institution, the SBA. You're probably going to want to tie some language in that says, if you don't make these payments according to this new workout agreement, here is the quick and easy route to liquidation.
Very good. Well, very good. I appreciate the case study. Let's go ahead and move on, Lance. It's time's moving. Okay. Kim, talk about the PDK for PDKs.
Okay, Kim asked a great question. If you have an SBA loan that's sold on the secondary market, there's actually what I consider 2 PDK requirements: purchase demand kits. You have to do what's known as once the loan, if the loan's sold in the secondary market, it goes in liquidation, and the bank or SBA is going to buy it back from the investor. 98% of the time, SBA buys it back from the investor. If SBA buys it back from the investor, there is the expectation that you do a pre-purchase purchase demand kit. It's basically the same purchase demand kit that you would do on any other SBA loan. It just doesn't have the liquidation information of liquidation of the assets. But you have to do what's known as the pre-purchase, and that occurs very shortly after SBA's purchased it from the investor. And then when you finish liquidation, you have to do a post-purchase purchase demand kit.
Let's go to the next question. I like this one from David. Go ahead, Lance. Set it up.
Well, first of all, I want the 2006 Dodge Sprinter van myself. Not really, but David's asking a question about collateral release. Collateral release is the unilateral action for an SBA lender. So if it makes prudent lending sense, you can do it. It's unilateral. Document the file, attach unilateral authority matrix. In this particular case, the collateral was a 2006 Dodge Sprinter van, and the engine is destroyed. The only value is scrap value of parts, $250 to do so, or the borrower's for release title, I think. I got to be honest with you, David's smart because he's asking for some updated financial information in this case, and the release of this title could be an opportunity for you as a participant bank to shore up documents that you're missing, get updated financial statements, but this is pretty clear and simple. Release it. Write a memo. It's easy to justify. The value's $250. You know, I would release it, and in this case, again, on condition of updated financial information from the borrower. But it's unilateral action. Write a good memo. Put it.
I would agree with you, except for the last sentence. The borrower has been uncooperative.
If the borrower's been uncooperative, I wouldn't let him have the title if he haven't. Does he say the borrower?
Yeah. However, the borrower has been uncooperative and has so far refused to provide the financial statements.
Yeah, I would not release unless the borrower, in any case of a release on SBA collateral, it's not an absolute requirement that you get something in return for the release, but as a prudent lender,
yes,
even on a vehicle that has $250 scrap value, I want an updated personal. I want 2015 tax returns should have been filed by now. I want a 15 tax return.
I want something. Even if it's $50, I want something. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Great question, David. I appreciate it. My other comment on that, I know we're in time. It's a time issue. 250. Don't spend a lot of time on this yourself. Just I like what you said. Bam. I want the financials. You don't have them. You want it released? Give me this. We got a deal. Bam. That's what I would do. Okay. Let's go to week 4.
Week 4, we're going to talk about no modifications. We're going to talk about what to do if the borrower requests a change in collateral that's held on the loan. We'll deal with servicing issues related to insurance. What to do if there's a change, and I had one of these come up. I had a borrower who was an LLC who suddenly decided to become a C Corp, and they dropped the documents on me, and of course there were some requirements from a servicing perspective, and also talk about loan assumptions. So it'll be a good week for prudent servicing.
Great. And we have a nice assignment. I'm not going to read through it. It's all next week. It's due next Friday. Again, this is a soft deadline. We put the deadlines up so to help nudge you along. But Lance's Furniture is having a tough time, aren't they, Lance? Is that why Lance is in banking?
They started building a new highway in front of my store, Bob, and my sales dropped off 20%, and suddenly I can't hit that SBA loan payment the way I need to. So I need a little relief. I need a few months deferment. They're going to finish up this highway project in 3 or 4 months, and I need a deferment. So what I tried to give you a few details, probably not as many as you needed, but I didn't want the homework assignment to be a 12-page assignment. But what I'd like you to do, this is obviously a unilateral servicing action, but what I'd like you to do is just craft a memorandum documenting the proposed deferment. And the second thing, there's a little special issue with this, and I'd like you to throw in there what you see as the problem or the thing that a prudent SBA servicer needs to be aware of. There is a special circumstance here that pops out that if you approve this deferral, it's going to impact.
Do we own? What is the collateral? Do we own the property? Do we have the collateral as the property as collateral?
The collateral on this was an inventory loan, Bob. I should have included that, but it was an inventory loan.
Because if we own the collateral, Lance, I'd give you 120 days and file the notice of default tomorrow. Anyway.
Hey, Bob, problem, Bob, is I have several big trucks. I can move all the time.
Very good. Great assignment. Okay, we're running a little bit over. I appreciate all your time. Are we clear? We are clear, gentlemen. Lance, as always, I enjoyed it. Thank you all for the great questions. See you next week.
See you next week. Have a good weekend.